Hey, Aaron.
Hey, Chuck.
Where's Sam?
Sam is at home today. Possum, as you all know, is her heart and soul. And seems like to me right now, Possum is coming towards the end of her life. And Sam took the day off from the show to be with little girl.
Oh, okay. Well, I've always given Sam crap about wanting to talk about Possum.
Me too.
I give her crap because she really likes talking about Possum because she cares for that thing. So the fact that Possums unfortunately lived for such a short lifespan.
Yes.
But we are very sorry that Sam is having to deal with that, and we will miss her today.
Welcome to Around the Reel with your hosts, Aaron Carlson, Charles Lawson, and Samantha Hanna. Gucci gang, Gucci gang, Gucci gang.
Well, yeah, talking about COVID, it does definitely do things to us as filmmakers. I mean, our company started a podcast just so we could stay creative.
Yeah.
You got to keep rolling. You guys talking about COVID since I got back over here in the mic?
Yeah. Since Aaron was playing with some of the audio stuff, yes, we were talking about COVID and how he hasn't left his house much since March.
Oh, gosh. Okay. All right. Yeah, it's been weird, Kit. Huh?
Yeah, I had a film, my seventh, Jagged Nails. It was actually shooting over in Renton at the Carco Theater, and we had gotten some footage for 2 days, and we're on a roll, and suddenly everything stopped.
Yeah.
So that got pushed on the burner, and then we tried to schedule again in March, and got pushed back again.
Damn it.
So, meanwhile, I had another project that I was going to work with Angela DeMarco and a cast. We had a couple of table readings and we're good to go. Had a location and in Tumwater, and we're ready to shoot, and that got canceled. So,
So are you canceling for safety's sake, or are you canceling because the locations were pushing you out?
no, the locations, understood what was going on, and but it was the safety issues. And even after I had gone online and taken a safety protocol course and so forth, I still felt so from my crew and cast that they weren't 100% comfortable, and I totally understood, because I realized that I couldn't ask, especially my talent, to step on set and be spontaneous and be creative if all the time they were wearing a mask and worried about infections, and it just was not the right atmosphere to get together and make a really quality film.
Yeah. I did see that on your Facebook feed. The Halton production you're going to start shooting next year, and I couldn't help but think the same thing. We were kind of lucky because we just casted our next feature in February, right before the pandemic hit. So we didn't start shooting anything yet. And in a way, I think it's been a blessing because, well, we've had more time to prepare for that film. But at the same time, it's like, it's hard. It's fucking hard enough to make a movie in general.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then you add all that in there. So it's impressive for anybody to go out there and make something right now and finish it. But man alive, it'd be hard.
For me, there was too many moving parts, and you've got to get all the parts aligned before you actually jump off into the deep end and start shooting. And there's this, I don't know, for me, there's this unique, special kind of inertia that's going on when you're filming. And whether, you go on to day 2, day 3, whatever, you keep that inertia working and you keep the energy working, and it comes together at the end of your final shoot. But if that's interrupted, then you lose that energy, you lose that kinetic feel for the project, and then you start worrying about all the pieces that are flying off, the cast, the crew, where they're going, where their head's at, and
how much their hair has grown.
Yeah. I mean, people gain weight, all those crazy things, and you suddenly, at some point in time, you got to bring them all back together again.
Yeah, man.
That's funny, though. That brings me back to a story. We did a shoot for a movie a couple of years ago, and we were doing our first big one to see make sure that we could do this, actually. And we had a guy who we hadn't shot him in about 2 weeks, and he was coming back in, and he was like, well, do I need to shave? And we're like, well, you have to look like you did the day before in the movie. This guy has grown a full beard in 2 weeks.
Yeah, he didn't get it.
He wasn't on board 100% on how it works.
No, he didn't get it.
A little continuity issue.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, time jump. All right. Well, welcome to Around the Reel. We've been recording for a minute. Today we've got a filmmaker and a really cool guy that we wanted to bring to the audience. His name is Kit Wilson, and he's up here in the Pacific Northwest with us. And Kit, there's not a lot we know about you. We were trying to do our cyber stalking thing to try to watch some of your films and to see anything, but we were able to see your sizzle reel, and that was about it. So I guess my question is, who the hell are you? And what do you do, man?
Yeah, well, I started out, thank you and welcome, and thank you for welcoming me.
Absolutely.
I moved up here from California, Los Angeles, 8 years ago, principally because I have two grown sons that were living up here and working and married, and thought, it was time to get out of the rat race. So I moved up here, and I had written 5 books for Amazon distribution before I came up here. And I just found that the whole experience of writing novels, writing fiction, just didn't satisfy, my creative urges. So I decided to switch over to screenplays. And I had to go through a whole 2-year progress, of learning the craft, taking master classes, reading books, getting my work critiqued from LA, because there's people down there who understand scripts and will give you the kind of notes you need. So anyway, it was kind of a long process, and I wound up eventually writing 9 feature scripts, and started to network with Los Angeles types with those projects, and realized that I was just too far away.
Gotcha.
The Pacific Northwest is just too far isolated from Los Angeles, and irregardless of what Portland's been able to do and Vancouver's been able to do, Washington State's been pretty well in the boondocks. Mm-hmm. And I even had a literary manager for a year who had approached me from Beverly Hills via LinkedIn and wanted to rep my work. And I decided, well, it's better than nothing in terms of getting in touch with people in Los Angeles. So for a year, she supposedly read my work, and at the end of the year, she hadn't gotten one script read. So I thought, the heck with this, I'm going to start doing some short films, at least get my work on screen and see what happens. And 5 years later, 6 films later, nearly 80 film festivals later, here's where I'm at in terms of, creating film.
It's amazing.
Yes.
And if you actually visit my Facebook page and scroll down, you'll see like 6 different trailers for my films there, which were kind of amalgamated into my sizzle reel a couple of weeks ago. But all my stuff is still on the festival circuit. And I think it was like 3 to 4 screenings in the last 4 or 5 years of my work in Seattle and over in Tacoma. But, people have things to do, it's in the middle of winter, whatever the issues are, they're able to be viewed by a bunch of different people. And then, of course, the Gig Harbor Film Festival showed my work. Port Orchard showed my work. Bellevue showed my work. And then just recently, the Seattle Film Summit showed my work. So there's a little bit of exposure here in Washington, but it's mostly elsewhere.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. That's putting out some shorts, man. So you've been hitting the film festival circuit, and that's one of the things I wanted to talk to you a little bit about today. Sure. For up and comers that haven't done a film festival yet, mm-hmm. Seeing the amount of festivals that you've been in with your projects is pretty hefty. I mean, you've done quite a bit of them. What's your process? How do you pick and choose what festivals you think will work for your film, or is there a preference? How do you go about even getting your film in one? Yeah,
I actually did some research after my first year of film festivals, because at first I just went to Film Freeway, which is the premier site to post and regulate your films, and just went through the basic list. Sundance, Cannes, Berlin, Toronto, and after that year's experience, I realized, I should be more focused. So the second year, I decided I was going to enter only film festivals for short films to see that possibly, they would get noticed better there. So I did wow, I don't know, 20, 30 film festivals that year for short films.
Wow.
And in the third year, I realized that I'm going back to the mixed festivals where they have both feature and shorts, because they seem to do better in that world than they do just strictly shorts.
Oh,
so
okay.
I went back to that, and Palm Springs, Hollywood, Berlin, Paris, Munich, they all got better attention when they were in those kinds of environments.
Gotcha.
So depends on what kind of project you've got, because I know that if you've got a specific genre like horror, or you've got rom-com or whatever, I would search out the festivals on Film Freeway that are uniquely qualified to screen those kinds of projects first, and that way you can hit the ground running in terms of possibly good feedback, as opposed to just diving right into a mixed bag of genres in a festival.
Right. So another question: what made you want to do film festivals in general? What was the idea behind those? Why choose that route with your films?
Exposure.
Okay.
Because I realized that I wasn't getting the exposure here in Washington State that my work needed, and rather than go to LA and try and set up some kind of operation there to get exposure, I decided I'm just going to get go through Film Freeway and hit the major markets and see what happens.
I gotcha. All right. He answered that question. That's what I wanted to know, because film festivals is something what I'm still back and forth on festivals, and yeah. I know it's a preference for the filmmaker or the project, and what whoever the creator is and what they want to do. I know what my goal is, but I'm coming around on the festival thing. Like, I like the idea of the exposure. I think that's how you do build your name, your brand, your projects, your productions, and get them out there. So I'm not sticky, because to me I was like, well, why the fuck would I spend money to put my movie in a place that I'm not going to get anything back, financially from, but there's more to it than that, isn't there?
Yeah, there's a lot more to it. And there's a couple of good books out on Amazon that I would recommend about festivals. Whether it's trying to network and play the festival game, or just learning a little bit about the big heavy duty festivals and what they're all about, because they really evolved since Bob Redford started Sundance, and it's kind of amazing how they have evolved. But the Hollywood big studios learned that the Sundances and the Torontos and the Berlins were good marketing tools for their indie films.
Correct. So
they started sneaking into the Sundances and the Berlins and the Toronto's festivals with their indies, and kind of test marketed their product.
Okay.
So what happened was they started to crowd out the little guys. They started to crowd out the indie guys, and so the indie guys had to go to smaller festivals because they're just literally getting crowded out.
Yeah. Yep.
And the networking thing, when Roger Ebert started going to Sundance and started kind of shining a spotlight on those kinds of events, it kind of snowballed, and most of the entertainment press and media started zeroing in on those two, because it was a good way to write off a trip to Sundance or wherever. You get your meals taken care of, you get to meet stars and do the interviews.
Sure.
So it just kind of snowballed to finally, wow, the little guy, the independents had to back away and find other festivals.
Yeah, and that's too bad. See, Roger Ebert. Well, he's at the movies, though. He's the guy, so he went, they all followed, like, oh, Roger's doing that shit, we got to go.
Right. Yep. But also, I totally get that. I'm all about writing off everything we can. Well, just like, our next location is my house. I'm writing half this stuff off.
You can do it, too. But the idea, I think, ultimately, for the small people that are trying to create film is that, tiptoe through the festivals on Film Freeway and read about them and decide, okay, my little project's going to shine better over here, or it's going to shine better over there, and then decide whether you want to actually go to the festival. because that's a whole different aspect as well. You know, it's one thing to get your project screened and, you know, maybe some promo done for it via the festival. It's another thing to get on the plane and go to it and actually try and hobnob with filmmakers and with distributors and so forth, and actually try to score some deals.
Yeah. And then, see, I can see value there.
Yeah.
You know, but how's that been affected with COVID? I mean, without having the live screenings, it's kind of like, is it worth it for a filmmaker to try to do that right now?
We've yet to learn what the actual payoff is, but outfits like American Film Market down in Santa Monica, where they do their huge festival, and
AFM
has been greatly affected. So I think that, you know, seeing your stuff done on screen and as opposed to a theater with an actual live audience is a whole different experience.
Yeah.
And I think the jury's out on that.
Yeah, it sucks. Dang it. Yeah, this thing really kind of put a damper on our creative platform a little bit, because we don't even know where the industry is going right now. I mean, what the way theaters are. I've
been cruising the YouTube channels and watching Hollywood Reporters roundtables. Have you watched those?
I've watched a couple, yes.
There was a really good one the other night with Scorsese and a truckload of directors.
I actually didn't watch it, but yeah, go ahead, continue. I saw the thumbnail for it.
Yeah, I thought it was very timely because it wasn't quite COVID related, but Scorsese was talking about his deal with Netflix and The Irishman, and getting feedback from everybody around the table in terms of how they were going with their projects. And Hollywood's drastically changing.
Yeah,
drastically changing. And with the AMC theaters and a lot of the other theater chains that have been hammered with this virus, it's kind of squashed, IP and media into the Netflix, building, or the Netflix world. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens in 2021.
Yeah, you've got major features, even like Wonder Woman right now, that's coming out on HBO Max and the theater at the same time. So
if the theaters goes open again,
yeah, I mean, things are going to be rapidly. I mean, they evolve. I mean, what else you got to do? I mean, it's got to stay alive somehow, some way, until we get through this, so we can get back to.
Well, I think that from my perspective, watching the Netflix and the HBOs and the other streaming services gobble this content up, in this voracious, nonstop manner.
The big Pac-Man. Yeah, they don't mess around. It's be like, wong, 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 wong. They just eat it up.
Giant Pac-Man.
Yeah, and the fact that Netflix committed to New Mexico and Santa Fe building that giant, movie complex, and they're like, I don't know how many billions of dollars they pledged to develop there, but it just seems like the independent guy, even if they're able to get some healthy distribution deals, are going to be coming up head to head with the big, tentpole projects that are being spit out of Hollywood, because they realize that they're not filling the theaters anymore now.
Yeah, I could see that happening too. So, I mean, we're going to have to go toe to toe with Warner Brothers. Don't fuck around. We can take them.
I'm not afraid of Warner Brothers. So
I'm not afraid of Warner Brothers.
The ultimate goal, the ultimate goal here in Washington is to create a studio experience for people to be able to use, filmmakers and all that kind of stuff, because we don't have one. We don't have a studio here.
True.
So now, granted, this was one of my goals that I've set as we started our company and all the things that we're doing as a long-term goal. However, I just feel like we took a 4-year step back on our long-term goal because of what's happening in the last 7 months.
Yeah, could be.
Which sucks.
Yeah. I've been watching the industry's investment in studios in the last 3 or 4 years, and it's been interesting up until COVID to see what they've done. And Vancouver, of course, came back to life, but then Toronto sparked to life because Shepperton Studios in London came over and bought this huge complex that was already built and ready to go, except that it was basically a ghost town. It wasn't being used at all, and they were hoping, that would be turned into a moneymaker. And then, of course, Netflix down in Mexico, and then Sony Studios in LA got usurped by Amazon, and so you started seeing these big players wanting to ramp up their streaming, and so it'll be interesting to see how they bounce back, or they at least adjust.
Yeah.
Yeah, so when you make the comment about picking a fight with Warner Brothers, I would love that idea because I would love to create something that Warner Brothers wants to fight with because then eventually maybe they'll have the money to buy it.
Possibly. Yeah. No, seriously.
We got to play the game one way.
Yeah.
I've been hearing for years that, Washington was going to get a studio, but then, the little gossip here and the little gossip there just kind of evaporated because it never really happened.
Well, that's when we got to figure out a way to collaborate with more people.
Yeah.
Well, it's all about money. And if you can be a Vancouver or Portland and say, yes, we'll do television production, we'll do, feature film production. We've got the giant studios to do it and the equipment, just, drop in and start filming. Then you get into the tax incentives and the statewide, carrot that is going to dangle in front of these productions. And yeah.
Well, you know what's funny, Kit? Watching some of the trailers you've done and the movies you've made, you don't strike me as a guy who would like to have the studio type thing. Your work is so creative, and you're doing like almost period pieces and these fantasy things, and you've got this creative freedom that you exude from your work. So, would you think that working for a studio would obviously hinder that? Would you go that route ever?
It would be a challenge because I've seen Megan Griffith and Lynn Shelton early on years ago fly down to LA and take meetings after their success up here.
Right.
And it just seemed like they were butting heads with the people down there because they wanted to shoot their projects up here in Washington State. And of course, the people in LA were saying, hey, we want to shoot down here.
Of course.
So,
lazy fuckers.
Well, the people from here, we have a handful of people up here who want to actually shoot up here. And you have to realize they're supplying all the rest of the cast and crew that are going to be having to ship up here.
Well, that's the beauty of filming up here, though. And I think that's what Kit's talking about. Like, he was in LA and he came up here and he's seeing this whole, group of filmmakers and actors and these creative people up here. And we got a beautiful area to film in. That you don't really see very much other than some, dark, rainy Hand that Rocks the Cradle. And they don't really show what, they assume there's more rain in that movie than has come down in a year in real life here. You know what I mean? But that's their stigma. But if we're able to show like the beauty of this area, I mean, think about like some of the projects we got lined up and where we can shoot at.
Yeah.
Have you seen that on film anywhere?
Not much.
Not really.
Not much. No.
Not really.
Yeah. When I first got here, I wrote a screenplay for a novel, my best-selling novel, Fall City, on Amazon. And I actually had a couple of people, local people, come to me and say that they've got a producer that wanted to invest in it. And so I had a guy that did Northern Exposure for several years on television, online producer, do the estimate for the project. And it was a period piece, takes place in the mid-'60s. And so he really sharpened his pencil, and for about 3 months, he did a lot of detailed research, and came down to the fact that we could film half of the film in Eastern Washington and replicate a lot of the locations that were going to happen, and then shoot the other half in LA, because there's a studio in San Fernando Valley that's got these big mock build-up airplanes, these passenger aircraft from the 60s, and it would save a whole lot of money in terms of building sets. So we were going to do half in Eastern Washington, half in LA, and I think the price tag at that time was $18 million, which I thought was pretty cheap. But I thought using maybe a B talent to fill the roles, we could pull it off, and it would still be a compelling project. And so got all our ducks in a row. We had a script, we had our budget, we had all the ducks lined up in a row. And the guy who was supposed to be the producer shows up. No, he didn't show up. He was supposed to show up for a meeting. He didn't show up, and never contacted him via email, phone calls, nothing. He just evaporated.
Wow.
So that was kind of an exercise of futility.
Right.
But I did learn a lot in terms of, okay, how do you get everything arranged for a feature film? How do you get, everybody set down on paper in terms of above the line, below the line, estimating. And so
that's film school. That's how you learn right there. That's a great way to do it. Wow, man. See?
Hands-on and depressing. A perfect way to learn.
An $18 million budget. Imagine that shit.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
I don't know if I'd want to do it still. See, kid, I like making movies for as little as possible. so that we don't end up putting too many eggs in one basket. You know what I mean? It's like if someone gave me 18 million, you know how many movies we'd make, Chuck? We'd make
I'd say at least
shitload.
18.
Yeah,
At
and
least
all
18.
over the board. I would go everywhere, every story, every genre, everything. You know, just I'm not going to throw all on one wall throw to see if it sticks. You know, I want to have a bunch of throws, man. You know what I mean?
But I think back then, and this was like 5 years ago, the idea of doing that kind of project and getting it into theaters still made sense to a lot of people. And it just, the guy who was supposed to package it and take it to LA, it never happened.
Gotcha.
And that's weird too, because I mean, being a guy who does estimates and stuff, that's a lot of time. That's a whole, being the nerd.
Yeah.
That's a whole lot of stuff that he actually did already put into it. I mean, was a lot. Right. And he just walked and ghosted. I mean, I'm hoping the guy didn't die, but still.
Well,
no, he's still around.
Oh, good. He's just dead to you.
Yeah, he just said fuck him and he left.
He set up on Facebook a couple years ago, so he's still around.
Wow, man. I don't know. It's crazy. I mean, this is a crazy industry, and there's so much that we don't really have any clue, Chuck. Okay, our story, Kit, real quick. We've been making movies for 20 years, if that, more, maybe a little more. We kind of learned on our own and did our thing. But we the last couple years, we started to go, I think we're at a level where we can actually kind of put it out there and see where we're at and see if we can build an audience.
Start to share.
Share a little bit and grow from there. And the audience can learn with us. I mean, they'll see this project and they'll go, okay, that was great. And then they see something else and go, holy shit, that was way better than the other one. That's kind of where we're at. But we're not embarrassed by what we're making. And we're pretty transparent about what we're using, how we're filming, the way we work.
Yep.
And I think that's a good thing. But that one thing that still sticks with me, the better we get, I really like the concept of figuring it out, and that's the struggle I'm having as a filmmaker, where I want to still have that creative part of me going, well, yeah, we could always have the money and figure it out and pay somebody to fix it. But how do we do it without spending money, and still sell the story in a believable way? That is the fun part to me. And I don't know if I ever want to get rid of that. You know what I mean? Well, I guess my question to you, Kit, since you've done a lot more projects than us, have you chosen to go the creative route as opposed to spending money on something to sell your story?
Well, fortunately I've realized that when I got up here from Los Angeles, that there are two different mindsets. Los Angeles is all business.
Okay.
Anywhere you go, people sitting around a table having a drink or a sandwich or whatever, it's the business.
The suits are all over the place.
Up here, it's not the business. There is no film industry. So consequently, the people you are able to interface with and network with, they're excited and passionate about film or acting or whatever it might be. So they're artists. And I got up here and started joining every possible group you could name that I could find talent, whether it was crew or cast or whatever, and realized that there was, qualified, really creative people here that could help me tell my stories, and it wouldn't cost studio kind of dollars, and it wouldn't cost studio kind of craziness. And fortunately, I've been able to do it. So kudos to the people that still remain living up here and want to hone their craft and use their talents, and yet have it sold out and it's a business and talk to my agents kind of attitude.
Right. You know why? Because we're not spoiled asses up here, Chuck.
We're not spoiled. We have to work our asses off.
Well, yeah. I love that. He's absolutely right. And that's the beauty of up here. So I don't really think it's a bad thing where we're living. It's not going to hold us back at all. In fact, it probably will help. That's how I really feel.
We know that Hollywood won't interfere up here unless we do something that gets attention.
Yeah, and I don't know fucking studio telling me to hurry up and get my movie done. I'll do it when I'm ready. I want to feel it. You know what I mean?
That's a great
Chuck, why are you looking at me like that? See, Chuck is the business guy.
I might be the guy telling you to hurry up and get the fucking movie done.
I'm like, they can kiss my ass. I wrote this shit. I'll film it when I want to film it. I'm going to watch Mandalorian tonight, and then tomorrow we'll film. Yeah.
There's a great story about Ridley Scott when he was doing Blade Runner. And there was a whole book about just nothing about how they created that film. And Ridley Scott was up against the wall towards the end when they weren't going to have enough time to film the climax. They weren't going to have enough money to build the sets to make it happen. And so it was an interesting time for him to try and complete and package that film when they were running out of money and they're running out of time, and the weather was god awful.
Right,
it was really bad.
Right, good stuff, man. Wow, dude, I love making movies. It's so fun. It's so fun to try to figure it out. It's like the biggest puzzle that you could possibly try to figure out. And there's so many pieces. It's not just the art side of it. You know what I mean? It's so much that we have to do that I don't think people realize. They go to the movie, they see the movie, they're like, oh yeah, that sucked. Or no, that was great. That was bad. And they have no idea the amount of work and just compassion that someone has to complete something like we do. It's amazing. If you think about it.
And I think they fail to realize that with so many people involved with the project, each person in the project is following their own passion. So, they're divested into the project and they're committed to the project. And you don't see them, you don't, see the accolades that are given to them, but they're just as important as the people that are in front of the camera.
Oh, hell yeah.
They're actually pulling it off.
Yeah. They're the linemen. They're the guys blocking for the fucking quarterback. I mean, and they don't get any credit whatsoever, but without them, we wouldn't be shit.
Well, and it's funny, Kit, that you said that way because Nicole Moriarty, she's cast to be in our next film. And
I work with her.
Yeah. I trust me, I noticed. I was going to ask you for an inside scoops, but since we're recording this, in case you don't have any wonderful things to say, we'll hold off.
What? No,
I'm kidding. No, but because of the fact that she knows everything that went into creating the story, that when she changed her look and she chopped off her hair, she actually messaged me and she was like, I understand if my new look completely changes the wholesomeness of your thought of the character. My first thought was, if I don't like your look, we can always put a wig on you. Obviously.
Yeah.
But no, because it's like, but that's what you're saying. She has read so much into the story that she knows exactly what we're looking for. So she automatically thought by changing her look, changed everything because she's that vested in it. And I'm like, no, you're that vested in it. You are that character. So no, you're still good. Thanks.
But she's professional. She understands continuity, not like the other guy we dealt with a couple years back who grew a beard in a week and was like, is it fuck up the movie? I'm like, bro. Bro, yes. Okay, this is supposed to happen in a day.
She did. She was supposed to have a Russian accent, and she studied long and hard for months, so that when she delivered her lines, she had a Russian accent, and I thought she was flawless.
That's excellent. And what was the name of that movie she's in with you?
A Twist of Time.
What's it about? I'm curious.
It's actually we shot up in Port Townsend at the Palace Theater or Palace Hotel, which is a Victorian-style hotel. Perfect backdrop for a film, and it's about a modern-day woman who comes to stay at the hotel, and she wants to commit suicide because she's lost her husband and daughter in a car accident. So, but yet she's a Nobel Prize. Well, she's not a Nobel Prize, but she's awarded physicist. And so she gets in this hotel room, and through a time machine that shows up in her room, the youngest daughter of the Tsar of Russia, Anastasia, shows up, and she's desperate to save her family from being executed. And so they got a 3-hour window to save them. So that's kind of the premise of the story.
Dude, that's a badass story. That's no joke.
Yeah, I'd like to watch it.
Yeah.
Hint.
Well, send me a link, and I'll hook you up with my Vimeo files. Yeah.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
Aaron, start typing away.
Yeah, we'll get it. No, that sounds great. Going through some of your work that I was able to peek at before the show here, seems like you make a lot of period type pieces. So that's scary to me. We did a noir, but we were like, well, we're going to just modernize the noir, we'll keep it like this and kind of build this world, the way we wanted to, because there's no way we're going to sell, the 1930s. It's just not going to happen. So we might as well just play with that world a little bit. But you've got the balls to go out there and figure that out. So what's your process? I'm just curious. How do you start something? Let's say like, there's another one that you've got where it looks like they're in a cabin somewhere.
That's Layla's Rain.
Okay.
Yeah, that actually, we got that location over in Whidbey Island, and that's a 116-year-old cabin.
Okay.
So it was perfect. But I think when I start out in my projects, I want to make sure that my audience is going to be invested. And I think that there's a lot of times a modern audience will start to watch a film and get distracted. I don't know if they're looking at their cell phone or they're thinking about dinner, but they're easily distracted if it's a contemporary story.
Yeah.
So I've decided that if I can keep most of my stories in a period, that it's going to draw their attention a little bit more, because they're going to shed their disbelief for an hour or whatever, and plug into the story and plug into the characters and believe it. So that's kind of been my path to showing off my creativity, is just putting these into specific periods, and that way I can tie in the events that are going on at that time and kind of have the characters react to that.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's great.
I also can think of what he said earlier too about your first film that you're looking at doing, and the fact that you said that the 60s was a period piece. Are we really getting that old to where the 60s is now a period piece?
Yeah, bro.
I mean, come on.
Yeah, actually,
next thing you know, I want to do something from the 80s.
Well, think about it.
That was like 50 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, we could pull. I think about if we tried to make an '80s movie right now. Think how hard that would be.
Oh, I know.
It still would be hard, right?
I know, but I just don't like. I don't like the fact that the hits that I used to listen to as a younger person is now on the great, golden oldies. I mean,
you're not old, Chuck. You're just getting older. You're fine. He's sensitive.
Well,
He's sensitive,
what's
kid.
interesting is that when I wrote the dialogue for that '60s project and did a table read, I had a couple of actors ask me if that was a kind of words that would be accurate to that period, because they were just flabbergasted that people would talk that way. And I said, guess what? I lived through that.
Right.
That's exactly the way people talk. So, yeah.
I know, that's funny. I remember seeing a Western for the first time where they used the F word. Why did I say F word? When they said fuck. I can say that on the podcast. Yeah, they said fuck for the first time in a Western. I'm like, did they really talk like that back then? It made me wonder. And I'm like, well, why wouldn't they? But then again, I don't know. I think I saw something else too. I can't remember. Did Celtic guys say fuck back in the day? Like, would Conan say fuck?
Well, they had their own form of foul language from whatever it was, but depending on what they were saying, you're going to go back to Celtic time, you're not talking about necessarily English.
I don't know.
So
what do I know? I'm from Tacoma. I have no idea. I'm just curious. Anyway.
I think it's interesting that the golden age of Hollywood, when MGM and Warner's and so forth produced their 50 films a year, or whatever it might be, they made sure that the dialogue they were using was relatable to their audiences, regardless if it was Gone with the Wind or a contemporary project. And yet, the only time you hear a swear word is maybe at the end of Gone with the Wind, where Clark Gable says, give a damn.
Right.
So, which was kind of shocking for the 1950s or 1940s.
Right.
But I think Hollywood's become, numb to contemporary verbiage, and they're letting it filter into period pieces, and it turns me off. If I'm seeing a period piece and people are using contemporary language, then somebody's pretty lazy.
Yeah, it threw me off too with the Western. Like I said, the first time I heard it, I'm like, I don't know if they really talk like that. I don't know. It's weird. It is weird. You make a good point. How did you? And I know you said earlier you were writing books, and that didn't really fill that creative void you had, right? How'd you get bit by the filmmaking bug? I mean, I know you said that you started writing the screenplays and you got them picked up, but what made you, I know it's a hard question to ask, but what got you to go, I like making movies. I like this.
Well, I think when I wrote my novel that did well on Amazon, I thought that would be because actually I thought that would make a better screenplay than a novel. So I went ahead and wrote the novel so that if I wanted to sell it at, American Film Market or whatever, I could tell them, here's a book it's based on, because Hollywood likes to hear that. You got a ready-made market out there because they bought the book. Oh, okay, we'll make the movie. So I decided to write the screenplay, and it wasn't until I had written, 9 feature screenplays and switched over to my short projects so that I could actually see them on screen, that I realized that, wow, I kind of enjoy this whole process of being on set and working with talent and making it come to life. And I think one of the best master classes I ever took was Ron Howard's master class, which I highly recommend.
I've been wanting to watch that one.
Oh, that is so worth it. It's great. I mean, the guy just literally sits on a stool and talks to the camera, and then he takes you through production, sets, camera setups. It's great. But anyway, he continually says at the beginning of his masterclass, the director is the keeper of the story. And I kind of plugged into that when I had directed a couple of films and realized, yeah, that's right. You write it, you direct it, and you make sure that the story is kept to the quality and vision that you had at the beginning. So, yeah.
Yeah, listen to that, Carlson, because our director over there, the next one that he's doing is a screenplay that I wrote.
Yeah.
So you make sure you keep to that thought process,
and
that
I have.
dream.
Yeah, that's clever. I'm on tune with you. I got this. Yeah, that's why I ask you so many questions about it. But yeah, there was this thing I was thinking about driving over to the podcast today, and it was just when you write a story, you've got this stuff, this idea comes out on paper, right? You do your thing. And then you go, holy shit, this would be a great movie. And then you figure that out, and then you write screenplay. Okay, we got this, and we're starting. I mean, everybody gets on board. And then there's this process you go through of learning how much your initial idea may not work on screen. It's one thing reading it, and then there's another thing seeing it. Yep. And I learned that on our last film. I mean, I started to get an idea. The first feature we made back in 2017, our little test run to see if we could do it. Then we made The Outrider. And 15 page script I wrote.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, okay, we can keep it under 2 hours. It's fine. We got that freedom. We have a studio telling us what to do. That's the beauty of it. So, but by the time I cut that thing, it was 2 hours and 40 minutes. I'm like, what the fuck happened?
So his studio was me and
this
woman saying, we got to make it lower.
We trimmed the fat, but here's we trimmed the fat. But here's the funny thing though. There's a way to write for screen, and that's what I'm kind of learning. And the only way I'm going to learn is that process, what we went through, right? Okay, right. So shit, that's too long. I might write another script that's 80 pages, and that might be too short. I don't know. And I mean, do you have a structured process for the films you make to know? I know if I do it this way, it's going to work. Do you have a way that you do it, Kit?
Well, let me just reiterate that right now Hollywood's in love with 90 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, it was after about 3, maybe 4 films that I had done that I realized that, completely, I finally surrendered to the idea that I may be in love with my words the first draft, but it's going to go through a whole lot more drafts before it's actually shootable.
Right.
And I had realized that when you're on set with an actor and he's supposed to pick up a coffee mug with his right hand and turn left, it looked great on paper. Right. But on set, in that location, it's just not going to work. So those kinds of things, as you watch and adjust and change and adapt, and it affects your writing. Yeah. So pretty soon, when you sit down to write a script, ahead of time, I can't put this guy in this part of the location. It's just not going to work. I've got to switch things up. And you just have to understand what's going to happen once those words get, mixed and put on the screen.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the fun part to me now. And hoping that I'm right. I get this, not a bad anxiety, but this butterflies. Yeah, they just fly around. They're everywhere in my belly because I'm so stoked. I'm thinking, God, this is going to work. This is going to work. And then you get there and you start editing and you're putting that shit down and you're like, oh, it's great. And then you do another scene. Next thing you know, you've got this 2.5 hour movie. And you're like, oh shit, I got to do something. This is too much. And then there's things that you learn, for example, screenplay writing. I wrote The Outrider a certain way, right? You can only clip so much if you're not paying attention to what you're writing. Now, if you go out there and shoot all this stuff and you try to chop your movie up, it's not going to make sense. There's certain parts that I had to keep that I could not clip, or the movie would just be a mess. Kind of like Batman vs. Superman. What happened to that? The same thing, and there's just, sometimes you got to sacrifice to learn. I know The Outrider's too long, but if we chopped it anymore, it would not have worked. And that's the beauty of indie filmmaking to me. It's okay, we learn as we go. You know, we are going to continue to learn. So if someone bitches about how long the movie is, like, fine, don't watch it all then, fucker. I mean, that's how I feel. But, you know, that's how we had to tell that story at this moment in our career. And that's okay. You know, that's why we keep the budgets low. That's why we work the way we work. So we're not losing anything. You know, we're learning. It's our school. You know what I mean? Yeah,
I think that one of the harder things I had to learn switching from novel writing to screenwriting was that the story you're trying to tell has to be a 3-act play. There has to be, you know, your inciting incident. There has to be, you know, blah, blah, blah by page 10, blah, blah, blah by page 25. You know, that's, I'm quoting Save the Cat. But the reality is, if you absorb that kind of structure into your creative work, you're going to have less issues when you get out to the other end and you've got a director's script that's going to have to be utilized, you know, on a set.
Yeah.
And fortunately, and I've been very fortunate for this, is that I've been able to shoot all my films linear, and it just turned out that way.
Yeah.
I was prepared to shoot them in chopped up segments and then, you know, edit them together. But fortunately, because of the location, the timing, whatever, I shot everything linear, and I found that that's so much more organic for me, and it also helps my talent, you know, progress with their characters, you know, as they learn their characters and go through the situations. That it actually works better when you finally are able to turn it over to your editor and realize that it's all in sequence.
Yeah,
you know, they don't have to figure out how it's going to drop in based on, you know, when they shot it.
I absolutely agree. I fight for that.
Yep.
I really do. I'd rather not shoot a day and wait, you know, until the cast can come for that day. I would do that in a heartbeat, just because that linear path, it does exactly what you're saying. You kind of, the story grows organically with, like, naturally the way it should. Like, I don't want to jump and film the end first before we fucking film the beginning. I don't want to do it that way.
Well, I've got to believe that the energy level of your cast is going to be different too.
Yeah.
I mean, they can psych themselves up for the climax. They can, you know, get themselves all pumped up and give you the best performance they can. But if it's the first day of shooting, I got to believe that by, you know, day 30 or whenever, when you're ready to shoot that scene, they're going to be better prepared to deliver the kind of performance you want, as opposed to the very first day.
Absolutely. Yeah. Then they're going to know who their character is even more by then. I mean, they're going to have little twists and quirks and all kinds of shit they do that they would have not even thought of, you know, just naturally comes out. Anyway, go ahead, Chuck.
Yeah. And I think that also they react to the environment they're in. So whether it's a set or other players, you know, in the same room, they react to them. So by the time they get to that scene, they've accumulated all that, you know, knowledge via the other elements, so that they're able to up their game quite a bit.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah, I mean, that was one of the things I was going to note on too, is one of the things that we always do is we always bring the cast and crew together before we start, so that people can start to get to know each other, especially depending on the project. Our next project is like a big family, essentially. So if you bring a bunch of people together to have this ending before anybody even knows anybody on set and has even built chemistry with them, it's not going to be the same.
Right.
It just won't.
Yeah. And they're like, who are you, motherfucker? I don't barely know you. I don't know who you are.
But then also the second thing is the fact that, and the more I deal with different types of talents, not everybody, one, reads the entire script. Some talent doesn't even pay attention to that. They memorize their parts. They are good at what they do, but they don't know what the hell's even going on in the story.
Sure.
And I'm like, you do realize that, you know, this is no disclaimer for anybody for anything that we've written, but you do realize that you die in a day and a half, right? And people will be like, "Oh, I'm not in the rest of the movie." Like,
yeah, you read the script.
Read the script, appreciate the story. And that's one of the things I thought was the coolest things for our next project, is because everybody read the script and responded immediately. So that feedback was awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
What inspires you?
Everybody on the same page.
Yeah, man. It helps, doesn't it?
Well, I'm fighting with the idea of doing a linear for our next project, just because of the fact that if, you know, depending on when we can start filming again, when things start working.
Well, think positively.
I know, I'm sorry, but I'm just thinking out loud. But, you know, if we can start, we can shoot all of our interior.
Right. Yeah.
But there's a beginning and a middle that are outside, which we don't want to film in this kind of weather.
Well, we'll see. We'll figure it out.
So there's little things like that.
Yeah. Well, that's filmmaking, though, and that's the fun part. We'll figure it out. We always do, and that's what I think people like Kit are proving. Like, you know, the amount of work he's done and the projects he's worked with and the amount of talent he's had around him. I mean, look where my man's at. He's made a lot of movies.
I know.
That's great stuff. What inspires you, kid? What stories inspire you? Like, how do you come up with this stuff?
I've been asked that question a lot.
Oh, okay. Well, I can ask you another one that no one's asked.
No, I'm trying to give a real honest answer because I've had a couple of different answers based on where I was at in my filmmaking timing. And I think that, this is the most obvious one. I used to be a painter. But way before I started writing, I used to be a gallery painter and join competitions and so forth in Southern California. So I had a lot of my work out, displayed and critiqued and sold and so forth. And so I think that was a good learning experience to take with me when I eventually started writing. So I found that when I was traveling around and going to art galleries in Europe or wherever, and I would get inspired by a painting and the subject matter, I would later use to write years later a story or a situation. So I think I'm such a visual person that I've got to be sparked by some kind of visual muse that sets me off on a story. So I think that's my first is what would the poster look like? And that's why when you see my posters, I did my own posters because that's the world I came from. I was in advertising agencies for 30 years and I did, nothing but advertising.
Yeah. Okay. So that image is in your head, so to speak, in a way. Yeah. He sees it and feels it. Yeah. That's kind of how I am. I get a lot of my ideas like in the morning when I wake up. I've either dreamt about them or something. I remember specific images from my head when I'd wake up in the morning of something. So I came up with The Outrider. That's a lot of the ideas I had. Blackout was the same way. I mean, these new movies that, I'm writing right now, and it just interests me, like, where do people's, what sparks that story? It could come from anywhere, which is kind of,
right.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't know. You could be talking to some guy at the grocery store and all of a sudden you're like, holy shit, that'd make a great movie. And you go home and write some shit. That happens. It does. It's fun. You also have a lot of, I noticed on your reel, the first thing I saw was like, he's got a lot of strong female leads in his movies. I didn't see like Schwarzenegger running around with a machine gun. I mean, you know what I mean? What pulled you in that path to have have those strong ladies and have them the arc of the story?
I think when I wrote a couple of my first early books that had male characters in them, I came to the conclusion that males, for the most part, when they're being portrayed, have two layers. They have the outer layer, which is their projected persona, and then they have an inner layer, which is their more vulnerable persona, and you sometimes get to see it, sometimes you don't. Mm-hmm. Women, on the other hand, have multiple layers.
Okay.
So I found that writing characters that were strong females gave me an opportunity to show a lot of different sides of them, and they would react to different situations a lot different than maybe a man would, which to me made it more interesting. So all my projects are strong female leads, and I feel, after doing the projects that I've done, I feel very comfortable telling those kinds of stories because one, the female market likes it, but two, I think that as males, we can learn a lot about female behavior if we see them put in certain situations and they react not the way we expect them to, and that I think is a good learning experience.
So how do you know that? I mean, it's interesting. I remember when I'm writing a female character in one of our stories, I'm kind of guessing. I'm like, I don't know if the woman would do this, but it's kind of cool. How do you know?
You need to talk to more women.
Well, I mean, that was my question to Kat. I mean, did you talk to a lot of women and ask them specific questions about how would you react, if you saw, this time machine or, somebody came at you with this magic? I mean, how did you know how they may react, or did you just go off your gut instinct? And if that's the case, how the fuck do you know so much about women? Because I'm still trying to figure that shit out.
Well, fortunately, I've known a whole lot of women, but I didn't specifically sit down and talk to them and ask them how would they react to certain situations. I actually would do a lot of research about the personality types that I was trying to portray.
Okay.
And then I highly recommend a book that's I read and went through and marked and dog-eared, and it's actually the number one book for writing female lead characters. It's called A Woman in the Story.
Okay.
And go on Amazon and look that up because you will be blown away how detailed that book is about writing female characters, and it's actually written by a female director, or no, she's a casting agent, and she goes through the whole gamut of female interaction with life, with people. And so when you dig into that kind of information, you'll be able to write about females that actually are believable. Yeah.
So he read some books.
Why do you make it sound like it's surprising?
Because I guess all the time. I wonder if it helped me, like, even at home with Sam. Like, Sam would be happy with me more.
I've had this conversation with you for years.
I
Yes,
need to read.
You need to read a couple books, and you can make your woman happier
I'm trying.
and more satisfied.
But I did, you know.
One more thing that I must add is that I went and got a couple of books about personality traits, and made sure that when I started to craft my character and story, I would attribute her traits or his traits to specific profiles, so that once they got into the story and started interacting with each other, it made sense, their reactions or their non-reactions.
Gotcha.
And no, you can't write every woman having DID because they're not all that crazy.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay.
All right. Yeah. Got it. Man. Yeah, that's a tough one. You know, I always think, when I think of a female lead in a movie, and I'm not trying to be sexist or anything, but they're badass. You know, they got like a big gun and they know karate and shit. They're doing all that cool stuff. Like, you know, because when a woman does it, it's badass. When a guy does it, we're kind of like, yeah, some guy. But, you know, when you see a chick doing it, she's no joke. Look, like Mila, you know, in Resident Evil movies.
Sure.
I mean, she kicks ass. You
No,
know,
and-
I think the course, the big studios plugged into that, and were able to give a green light to those kinds of stories, because it tied into the male persona of what a strong female would be.
Yeah.
Should be the Terminator lead female, or she'd because the men identify with violence, or they identify with power, and so of course we're going to accept her because she's carrying a gun. But to switch that up and get into a Juno or some of these other female character stories,
that movie too.
You got to kind of, for a man, you got to switch some gears here, because you're watching females act out in a way that maybe you're not even aware of.
Right. And you know what's funny? I know exactly what you're talking about. I talk a lot of shit. But like, as soon as you said Juno, I'm like, I know there's like thousands of movies I've watched where I'm bawling like just a bitch. I'll cry like so hard. And it's because I am in tune with what you're saying. I always get a little nervous though, writing a female character though, just because I'm a guy. What do I know? But at the same time, I think the characters that I've written in my past that were female, the ladies who have played those characters took that shit to another level.
Mm-hmm.
So they never said a girl's not going to talk like this. They never said that to me. They actually found, I guess, the thing I was writing, what's the word for it, Chuck? Come out. When you're writing a narrative for the character, basically, they found it, and that's good. And I guess that's a compliment on me. But at the same time, I never went full throttle like you do. I see, like, I'm assuming your films have a lot of female characters in them, and I can see why, the layers. It makes more sense,
Mm-hmm.
and it'd make it a hell of a lot more interesting to play around with ideas. That's for sure.
Well, one thing that I found too is that when you have table reads, whether it's the first table read or the fifth table read, you're going to have different reactions to what they're saying that will help you refine and upgrade your story and your characters, because you can put as much thought into your characters on the page and as much intuitive insight into your characters as you can. But boy, when you sit down with a table of women actors and hear them go after it, and you start getting more insight into, this works, this doesn't work.
I bet.
Well, that's an interesting point too, because, okay, so talking behind the scenes here for a second. So imagine, Aaron, if you took Blackout and you switched your main character in that story to a female.
Right.
Not a whole lot would have to change as far as how the movie goes.
True.
But the insights and all the reactions of that character would be the main thing that changed.
Right.
But the movie would still totally work. It's not like it's a male-driven
No, that's
movie.
true. I mean, that's a good
Don't
point.
overthink the fact that you don't know how to write things because you write a story good enough that can actually be carried by either or.
Sure. I'm just curious though. It's one of those things, because I do think about stuff like that. Like, am I insulting, a group of people that I don't understand? Like, it wouldn't matter if they're women or if they're from another nationality or race or, whatever. It's like you want to know how to properly, portray certain aspects of those characters. And, it's interesting that you're able to do that and find a way to do it. But see, maybe we're giving everybody too much fucking credit, because I got a lot of layers too, Kit. Like, I'm very, if women think they're all no joke all the time, but dude, I'm a very complicated person.
We know.
But I think the interesting thing, though, is when you see male, female interact with each other, and most males fall back to a default persona, a default way to react, whereas females, they've got a whole catalog of ways they can react.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
Whew.
We're not just talking about the negative way they react.
Oh,
to you,
no,
Aaron.
I'm thinking about all of them. Yeah, I don't know what's going on half the time. I try to figure
But
it out.
I would highly recommend that book, The Woman in the Story. I mean, that
Woman
is
in the Story.
a fantastic resource.
Okay. All right. That's a good one. We need to get that, Chuck, for a lot of reasons.
I already own it.
Oh.
I thought it was for the story of my life. I didn't realize it was for actually writing females. But if you haven't noticed, Aaron, the females in our next screenplay are actually pretty well written.
You actually did a good job on those. Yes, you did. You did.
Actually, no, I have not gotten that book yet, but I will definitely be getting that one, because I am fascinated. I am doing more research and more reading. It's not just me being a nerd, but I am, as far as like building a better story, because I want to make sure that if we're doing this the way we are on the low micro budgets that we are, we're telling the best story we can. That's the whole idea of what we're doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. I think in the long run, your female talent will appreciate the fact that although you're not a female, you've done what you could to give them the tools that they're going to use to portray that character.
Yeah.
That is actually kind of funny, thinking back to The Outrider, because there was the scene that we did with the actress Lexi, and I don't know how many times I kept asking her, this is awkward and this is totally strange. Are you sure you're okay with doing this scene this way?
Right.
It was a nightmare scene, and it was kind of graphic. We actually shortened it, I think, in the final cut.
Oh, yeah. Because you're a sicko.
Yeah, I'm a sicko. But I kept asking her over and over again, are you sure? I mean, there will be females with us. You're not going to be in any kind of compromising situation where you'll be alone. Are you sure you're okay? Because I started feeling more and more pressure, like,
Sure.
this doesn't feel right. Are you sure this is okay to do?
Well, because you're conscious and you're a good guy.
I have layers.
Yes, you have layers too. There was something I was going to say. Oh,
I'm sorry.
You did learn something, Chuck. So on the new screenplay that Chuck wrote and the new movie we just casted, but we paused because of COVID, Kit. There was a scene that you learned a different perspective from a female's point of view.
Actually, yeah.
And we rewrote the shot. You rewrote it because it was your thing. So it was your fuck up when you wrote it. Well, no, but it was very fascinating to see what he learned. And I totally agreed with the way it went down. Like, gosh, I didn't look at it from that female perspective. That does make this scene kind of shift in a weird way if we write it or shoot it the way you wrote it.
Right.
So, it was fascinating to get that point of view from a female going, yeah, this doesn't make me feel right because of blah, blah, blah.
Right. And I don't mind saying it too, because I mean, it was actually Nicole who's playing the daughter in the movie. It was her scene, that one of the scenes that she's in with the father, and she was uncomfortable with it because scene was written as an understanding of forgiveness no matter what somebody might go through. However, she pointed out the fact that this is a scene of bullying and almost sexual inappropriateness in teens. So it's not exactly something you want to try and sell as far as a point right there at being forgiving. Right. And she was right. I mean, I went back and I re-reviewed it. I had other females read it and they're like, I don't see it that way. I kind of see it how you see it, but I can see it how coming from a younger female audience in today's age is exactly how it'd be read. Yeah, but it was so good that she said it that way, because not only did it create a new scene for that, it created a better scene that I was able to add later between two best friend females that just all by themselves talking to each other and having just this dynamic scene together. So hopefully it will come out if we ever get to make the frickin' movie.
Yeah, but you grew as a writer because you have an open mind and you listened.
Yeah.
To other points of view.
Did Nicole say that during a table read, or how did you get that feedback?
Actually, that was one of the things that I got to learn doing this also, because Nicole is one of the only people that we are using that has an agent because she's underage. So her agent emailed me, and then we went through the whole process of going through that with her agent contacting me, letting me know that there was an issue with the scene because it was actually going to be the scene that was going to be used for the audition originally.
Right.
So it came back all the way back to then. And that all came through. So we ended up doing the friendship scene for the audition, and then I rewrote the scene so it'd be more appropriate. But then that was also a chance for Nicole to realize that, hey, I appreciate the fact that you're going through the channels, but if you have any questions, concerns, comments, you can come straight to me. And ever since then, everybody's been chatting.
Cool.
But it was originally came through her agent, and then I told everybody it's like it's totally fine. They were afraid that I wouldn't want her to audition because of the fact that she didn't feel comfortable with that scene that they were auditioning for. And I'm like, no, I still want her to audition.
Absolutely. You know what was cool though that I watched unfold in front of me this was Chuck's first screenplay he wrote. Okay, so it was really cool to see you take the constructive criticism,
Sure,
the way you did, without getting all, this is my fucking shit and I wrote it. You didn't get like that because you actually listened. And you know what happened? The story is better now. The main character is a better character now because of that. I think that I had a problem with some of the things you wrote too about your character that seemed too unbelievable to me. But I knew where you were coming from and why you wrote it. But that's the sweet spot, man. If you're collaborating with these other artists and they give you some feedback that you're not listening, there's no way you're going to remember everything. There's no way you're going to figure out every little avenue and kink and crunch. Sure. That's why other people can see something when they're on the outside and go, hey, you thought about this? And you're like, oh shit, no, I didn't. Boom. Then it's fixed. You've got a better story now.
That's
and
true.
You know what? Nicole may have made this movie, I know she has, better.
Well, that's why I didn't care about her cutting her hair.
Right, exactly. But it's really cool when you surround yourself with people that give a shit about what they're doing. And I think that's what Kit's talking about. Like up here, we've got these artists up here that they're artists. They really care about what they're doing.
And they're hungry to work.
Yeah.
They really are.
Thank goodness.
I wish that, because I'll be honest with you, when I had some opportunities to cast a couple of my films, I went through some agencies here in Seattle and Portland too, and tried to get some quality people to read some of my work. And I'll be darned if majority of them that were doing a lot of print work, modeling stuff, didn't have a reel. Or they were trying to get a reel put together based on, this director promised they would give her some footage, or this person is still in editing and blah, blah, blah. And they basically didn't have a reel. And I got so frustrated that I decided, there wasn't any professional attitude going on with these people at these agencies. So I just started going outside the agencies and going direct with the talent.
Yeah, absolutely. A beautiful thing.
Public announcement.
Yeah. Well, he's done a great job doing it. What's your we're going to wrap it up here soon, but I'm just curious, what was your famous or favorite filmmaking experience? I mean, you got one that stands out in your head where you're like, oh man, that was a great day, or that was a great shot, or I loved finishing that film?
I think my last one, my next to last one, Jagged Nails was going full blast when we were shooting it at the Carco Theater in Renton, and we had to stop because of COVID. So the one before that, Layla's Rain, which is on the festival circuit right now, we were set to shoot at least 3 days in this cabin over in Whidbey Island. And the end of the second day, we had finished shooting. And I walked out of the cabin and looked around and thought, this is unbelievable. How did that happen? I just couldn't fathom wrapping the whole thing in 2 days, but it did.
That's awesome.
It was that smooth.
That's smooth. See, wow. That's what I'm saying, Chuck. Keep plugging away at it, buddy. You know what movie that you made that I can't wait to watch? Just by your poster and the little tag you put on there. I think it's called Time Frame.
Oh, that's a feature film.
Is that a feature?
That's a feature script. Yeah, that's yet to be greenlit. So that's sitting on a shelf right now, waiting to be greenlit. Oh. But you're more than welcome to read it.
Oh, I would love to read it. No, dude.
Can we just look at the poster? It's great. Your artwork is awesome.
Yeah, it's super good. He does another like jumping around in time thing, and it sounded like just the story itself sounded very cool, but the artwork itself, man, it had this freaking like neo-noir kind of 80s feel to me. I was just like, oh, I gotta watch that. It's badass, buddy.
I had a couple of table reads of that project, and the timing's perfect. It would make a great science fiction story, whether it was on Netflix or HBO, and so yeah. if you're interested, I can get you the script.
I would love to peek at it. Yeah, that sounds fun. Super fun.
And all you reps from Netflix and HBO, he is just kind of made an offer. If you're interested, hit up Kit Wilson so he can maybe
seriously
get that thing greenlit for him.
Fuck Warner Brothers. Just go to Kit. Go to Kit. Kit's got the movies, bro. No, he does, man. Oh man. Well, Kit, it's great talking to you, my brother.
Thank you.
Yeah,
appreciate it.
Very, very.
The opportunity, because I my little sizzle reel just came together a couple of weeks ago, and I've been trying to negotiate or interface with some entertainment lawyers in LA, and it's just a whole different world right now. So we'll wait and see what happens.
Most definitely.
All of us will. All of us will. Man, it was a pleasure talking to you. Got a lot of knowledge in there, bro.
Before we cut you off.
Oh, what's up?
We are going to be putting some of these videos on because as part of our, strategic advertising, things like that. We take clips from the videos, we put the whole podcast out and everything else. So I got to ask, in case it comes up in the video and somebody asks, what's the name of the cat that keeps photobombing you in the background?
Oh, is she back there?
Not right now, but she has been periodically. She stops, she looks over your shoulder, stares at the camera, awkwardly like
that's Minnie, M-I-N-N-I-E. The barn cat. We rescued her from a barn about 4 months ago.
Right on. Little Minnie.
She's just looking for mice.
That's so awesome, buddy. Oh, Kit. Pleasure, man. Thank you for spending some time with us.
You guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah, a ton of knowledge for us. I appreciate it so much, and I know a lot of other people will too.
Thank you.
All right, my brother.
Good talking to you.
Good talking to you too. Chuck, you want to close us out today, my friend?
You bet. Kit, thank you for joining us today on today's show for a cup of coffee and a conversation. Man, it's so fun talking to people who do the same stuff that we do.
I'm telling you.
I mean, just getting lost in conversation, listening and learning from each other, and finding out that we all work with the same awesome people, or are hoping to work with them if we can ever start filming again.
Oh, and they get to work with me too.
Yeah, whatever. But all of this is awesome and amazing. So, Kit, thank you for your time. Thank you for hanging out with us on a Saturday. And remember, everybody out there, think hard, because you're thinking anyway.
Thanks. Thank you, Kit. All right, you too, my man. We'll see you. See you next week, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to the show. Hey, if you'd like to be a guest on Around the Reel, please reach out to us at our website. That's www.cccentertainmentgroup.com. There you can send us a message, and if you're an artist or creative or just want to get on the show and start talking about a bunch of shit like we do, please reach out to us and let us know. We'd love to have you. And if you also need other realms to find us in this wonderful Silicon Valley of what we call social media, we are also on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can find us all there. And we have a page on YouTube that we're just getting started as well. And also, if you do want to watch our feature film, you can find that on Amazon Prime right now. That movie is called The Outrider. It's our first major feature film that we did. We have a bunch more coming, but please watch that one. Let us know what you think. And anyway, thanks again, guys, for tuning in. We got more shorts coming for you, so talk to you soon.